So I just wanted to come at you with like a setup that I was just trying to put together with talent trees. So right now, we only have so many talent points, which later you're going to get more anyways because of the leveling process. But as of right now, I decided I'm going to go the direction I got right now. So yeah, this one starts off where you already got a point in like a battle stance. I'm like, cool, battle stance. Last I remember, this is not how battle stance used to be, but it's a balanced combat state that increases the critical strike chance of your abilities by 3% and reduces the duration of movement and parrying effects by 10%. Then I had to put a point into this, and that's one of the things that are kind of annoying about a talent tree, where you have to put a point in a thing that you kind of don't really want or something, like 100%. Not saying I'm not going to use defensive stand, but I had to get it, which in case it's a defensive combat stance that reduces all damage you take by 20%. But all damage you deal, it reduces it. So it's like by 10%. So you take 20% less damage, but you do 10% less damage. So that's the reason kind of I don't want it. It just depends on the scenario. I might want to go into it anyway. So then I had this one where my auto attacks generate 50% more rage, period. More rage. The more rage, the sooner you get it, the more you're doing abilities that require rage, period. Very important, especially as a tank. Like, the more opportunity I have to do a thing called ignore pain, the better. Right? So, and the more readily available you have rage to be able to just, let's say you're just doing output, maybe I use the move revenge and stuff like that, which I'll be talking about that in here in a moment. Now, over here on the right, I got rallying cry. Definitely think that that's a very important thing for not only yourself, but for your team, because I am a tank. I need to think a little bit about my team, just a little bit. And then I went over here and I got Berserker Rage. Now, the reason I get Berserker Rage, mainly because I think to get feared by a boss or to get feared by something anywhere, especially considering if it's a tight quartered kind of area, right? You get feared, you get to run in some random ass direction that just happened to be the direction of a mob, and now you got more a-holes all over you. Well, there you go. Berserker Rage gets that off of you. But I got an extra boost for that. But then also for extra survivability. Let's say something happened and the healer died, and something happened and, and I need to try to push through. Well, impending victory gives me the ability to give 30% of my maximum health on a heal. 25-second cooldown, which is not bad. So in a tight spot, I can try to keep myself alive, hitting that move. Bam. Hit that move, 30%. So, and then you think about if you increase your stam, you always get 30%. It's a pretty substantial amount of heal when you're looking at the numbers. Now, Berserker Rage, right? Guess what? I went with Berserker Shout. This gives me the same abilities as regular Berserker Rage, but with the added, also removes fear effects from group members within 12 yards. So, let's say I have my team with me. We're doing a dungeon, and here's an a-hole that wants to fear. I'm with multiple individuals, multiple classes that can't get out of fear just easily. Like, yeah, maybe one has like a big cooldown, like a mage can ice block, but you're wasting the ice block on a fear. So why not someone like me, the tank, who not only is the most important one to get out of a fear, but it's also important if nobody else is actually feared and running into some random direction and pulls another mob. That's where I come in with that one. And same cooldown, so it's a minute, but it's better than absolutely nothing, to be honest with you. And that's what I went with that, just to be a team player. Now, Spell Reflect just has to happen. It has to be a thing. There are times where something is going to do a spell that probably, especially if you're one of those people that get to realize what spells are better to interrupt and what spells are better to just reflect. As in, let's say this one particular boss does a spell that you're available to, you got the ability to reflect it, right? But it does a lot of damn damage, right? So it'll be one of those, let's say you had the option to either interrupt the boss or reflect the boss. I rather reflect on that maneuver that hits really hard, because then you could take a chunk out of that freaking boss's health with Spell Reflect. Always a thing that I want, though, in general, is Spell Reflect. I know when I jumped on the game, some of these talent points were already somehow in places, and it didn't give me spell reflect, and I'm like, well, screw that. So I mean, I redid the whole thing. Then I got leeching strikes, so I get an extra 5% leech. Now, leech period is freaking good, and that 5% is really cool. So you're looking at, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, leech works as in 5% of the damage you do comes back as healing. Leech returns a portion of the damage and healing as healing to you. Okay, let's go to the next row. I'm gonna come over here. My auto attack speed is 5% faster. Now, the best part of that is I got a few other things that involve auto attack. So if I auto attack sooner, quicker, more often, I get things like the extra rage faster, sooner, more often, etc. So that just is great. And then I have something on the other side there, something on the protection tree that actually does more damage to my auto attacks. Like my auto attacks do more damage. So to have more auto be a thing is just in general better. I went with that. Then of course I had to get my thunderclap. This is like a must-have. Now I blast all enemies within 8 yards and reduces their movement speed by 20% for 10 seconds. And now it deals reduced damage beyond 5 targets, so that kind of sucks, but whatever. And then I don't know if you can tell, I also have a glyph that says thunderclap, right? Your thunderclap visual includes lightning strikes. So that shit just looks cool anyways. In a little bit, I will discuss about a certain thing that I think it's the first time I've used this move in a long time, but we'll get to that. Now, of course, Heroic Leap, that's a movement thing. I mean, it just helps. Reducing the cooldown of Taunt is pretty cool. I don't recall if that was a thing in the original Heroic Leap. That's the only thing I'm not sure. Plus, I have it set up with a glyph where Heroic Leap, when I land with thunder. So gotta have that. Then, of course, the Frothing Berserker. This is like one of those things where it's an obvious for the things that how I'm gonna play. Let's say it that way. For how I'm building the character to how I want to play, Frothing Berserker was a thing I needed to have. The other problem, though, is I needed to have it anyways to get to other things. Revenge has a 20% chance to immediately refund 50% of the rage spent. That's the good part, is getting that much more rage back, like an opportunity for that to happen. It's always a good thing. It's never a bad thing to not be. I'm going to use revenge anyway, and a lot of times, very often. So having that there is cool. And what it is, the reason I also have it is because of this crushing force. Shield Slam deals an additional 10% damage and deals 10% increased critical damage. Now, one of the things I do with my Tauren warrior, opposed to probably other warriors, is I do kind of lean a little bit towards getting more opportunities to crit. The reason for that is mainly because a Tauren has a capability of critting harder than any other race. Granted, it's 2%, but 2% stacks on top of something like a 10% increase. So you add 2% on top of that 10%, and that's more damage. That's where I'm at. More damage, more crit on the crit, that's more threat. That's one thing I've done with my character, is try to make it where I can hold enemies easily. Even during a time where technically tanks were having somewhat of a problem holding aggro, and that was tanks in general. I was one of the top few that was able to hold aggro a lot easier than others. Yeah, I had my taunt right there ready, but I didn't use it as often probably as other tanks. The next thing I had here is Pain and Gain. This is actually something that was in, or still is currently right now as of this video being recorded. What they have in Shadowland in the Covenant when you're dealing with your Soulbind, it's one of the little things you could put in there, and it is when you take damage, you heal for 4.5% of your maximum health. So that right there is one of the conduits, okay? So they took one of the conduits and placed it into the talent tree. I think that's pretty cool. Blizzard's done that before, where they took things from the past, kind of added it somewhere, you know, snuck it in there, and you'd be like, oh, hey, look at that. That was a guarantee for me, because that's just cool by myself or in a group. By myself, oh, look, I got hit, 4.5% of my health. That's a decent little chunk of health. Yeah, it's once every 10 seconds, but 10 seconds kind of flies by sometimes. So to have that guarantee that if I get hit, like let's say, yeah, I'm going to parry. Yeah, I'm going to dodge a few times. That means I'm not going to get hit. That means I'm not going to take any damage loss. But if I actually have an enemy land a blow on me, at least I'm going to get healed by a percentage of my health. So the higher the health, the better for that as well. Now let's go way over here to the right. This is one of those things where it splits and you got two options. The option I went with is concussive blow. Cooldown of pummel reduced by a second. Now, that's just 1 second, but I also have something else that adds to it. So my pummel is going to be more often than not, okay? But also has successfully interrupting an enemy increases the damage you deal to them by 5% for 10 seconds. There you go. So, remember spell reflect? Okay, I can spell reflect that one heavy damaging move. Let's say I reflect it. Cool. Very next thing, let's say I pummel it, I interrupt it. Now I'm doing 5% more damage to that enemy. Booyah. Now, for that thunderclap up there, I did go with thunderclap deals 10% increased damage. And here's where I was talking about a move I haven't used on my warrior, or wasn't there, or I just didn't choose it. But I used it back in the day. Like, I definitely used this move back in vanilla, mostly against rogues, just to have a bleeding effect on them, because I believe at that time that was the only bleeding effect a warrior had back in the day. And what's better to keep a rogue from stealthing again is a bleed effect, because this thunderclap, if you have rend, thunderclap affects 5 targets with rend. Boom. So let's just say rend is not on this tree, but it is on the tanking tree. When we get to that, you'll see it. And of course, I had to choose it, and I just tested it out, and I thought it was fantastic to see. To put rend on a bunch of enemies that are going to get hit with thunderclap anyway. So you're looking at deep wounds plus rend. Everybody's bleeding. So this is the other reason I wanted to do it. Hear me out. Think about it. I am getting healing from deep wounds. I am getting now healing from rend, okay? And having it on multiple targets, that's 2 extra sources of passive healing from passive damage. Then every time I thunderclap, that rend is refreshed. I only have to hit rend once in the battle. Here I go. If I run into a group of son of a guns, hit rend on one of them, pop the thunderclap. Now from there on out, every thunderclap I hit just resets the cooldown. And because I'm building with the haste in a nice proper way, I'll have thunderclap even more readily available. So there won't be an opportunity where rend fades away and I have to reapply rend to the main target and then thunderclap just to have everybody. That won't happen. I've already just tested it out. I see how it feels. I see how it works. Rend will be on those son of a guns until they're all dead. Period. And again, every thunderclap, the more often I do thunderclap is the more damage I do. The more damage I do often is also on top of that, what? Leech, giving more healing. So the harder I hit with thunderclap, the more technically the leech is. Technically the more health I get because I'm dealing more damage. Because that's another thing some individuals need to understand, is that the more damage you do with the leech, the more healing you get back. Then on top of that, let's say you're increasing your baseline damage, but once you increase more opportunities to crit, I as a Tarn do more damage there, which thus gives me ultimately way more healing than certain other individuals on their tanking. Possibly. I'm not saying everybody's the same. That's where I get more damage and more healing. Oh my god. Alright, now, way over here, had to get the armor because there's also something that gives me more strength because of my armor. Right now, it's a rank 2, it's 2 ranks worth of this armor to the teeth. I want to get that later because the more strength, the more baseline damage I do. The more baseline damage, the more the actual crits are. The more the actual crits are, ultimately, what is it? More damage also equals to more healing. Bam. And more threat generation. Because if you self-heal, you also increase threat. Some people don't understand that healing plays a part in the level of threat that you will have. See, now that was on that level. Let's go ahead and go to this level real quick, and I got the cooldown of shield slam and pummel reduced by 1%. So remember how I had that one over there? The pummel right over here, that's 1%. Well, I got another percent right there. So I can pummel more often, shut someone up. Which, in case, the more frequently I can have the ability to pummel a spell cast, the more readily available I get 10% more damage against that target. Boom, more damage, more healing. Now, there was one thing I did just because it sounded funny and cool, is a Titanic Throw. Now, it replaces Heroic Throw. So Heroic Throw is just, hey, I throw that one weapon at that one target, and it's got a high amount of threat, which is true. That is probably one of the most threatening moves out of all the abilities that a warrior can do. But imagine if you can hit that guy you're targeting, right? You hit that target and 5 more with Titanic Throw. So now I'm going to hit everybody with damage, and I'm going to produce threat on all their assets. So it's one of those, like, let's say I have a mob of 5 targets in front of me. Normally, I would tag the one, just the one, with a Heroic Throw. You don't get to hit the other ones, but luckily, Heroic Throw baseline, I believe, didn't have a cooldown. So I did kind of tab target and threw a Heroic Throw at multiple other targets. The main reason I did that as a tank is because if a healer just throw one healing spell on me, and it don't have to be like some kind of potent healing spell, it just could be a small little thing that's semi-healing, like not even 1% of my health, let's say, as an example. The other targets I didn't hit are going to want to go to that freaking healer, and I hate that shit. You know, it's like, god damn it. So I would have to hit them all with a freaking heroic. In this case, with Titanic Throw, that avoids that situation altogether. I just target the one in the middle, Titanic Throw, I hit him and his buddies, and they all will be coming after me regardless of what everybody else is doing. Because that was another thing too. I gotta throw this one in there. I may target the one and hit the one with Heroic Throw, but doesn't mean that that hunter over there or that mage over there is targeting my target. They're probably targeting the guy right next to him. They do one spell. Some DPS open up really hard, and that guy's that target's definitely going to that mage or that hunter or druid or just DPS in general. Jesus Christ. And I'm either going to have to just try to pop a taunt on that target just to get them back towards me. But with this, completely avoids that situation altogether. So Heroic Throw all 5 of those targets, or Titanic Throw for this case, is really good. Then it's a 3-second cooldown. It's not that bad because it is between 8 to 30 yards. So I can go max out 30 yards. By the time they get to a certain distance, I can crack them one more time with that move, and then they're in my face. So I can easily hit a mob of 5 targets with Titanic Throw twice. So you can imagine the amount of threat you'll do on your first throw, and then the amount of threat you'll generate on top of that with the secondary throw. So one way or another, that mob is coming to me. Why? Because that's my damn job, is they supposed to be coming to me. I'm the tank. Now, this talent here is technically what I have on currently as a legendary helmet, which I just also found out that legendaries that you've made in Shadowlands only work in Shadowlands. But imagine this, is now I have it as a talent and I have it as a helmet. I wonder how much extra damage I'm going to do, possibly. But here's the case. So it's if you Whirlwind or Ravage, if the Whirlwind or Ravage hits 3 or more enemies, you do an additional wave of damage. In this case, it's 30%. So it's like you'll do a revenge and then another wave of revenge at 30%. If I look at my helmet though, my helmet states it's 75%. So technically this legendary is a lot more potent than the talent, but considering how we all are going to be generally stronger, I can understand why Blizzard would want to reduce the amount of damage. I understand. But imagine that. Right now I got this helmet. Let's say I go to Shadowland with this helmet and that talent. I'm wondering how much damage I'm going to do. I'm curious about that one. So that one was just one I had to do because I'm normally fighting 3 or more targets anyway. So why not give myself an extra wave of free damage? That's free damage. That means I'm using a maneuver that costs X amount of rage and I'm benefiting more out of it. Bam, free damage. So it's free damage and free self-healing. Once again, damage and healing. Now, let's hit this next row. Obviously, I showed you the one with the painting game. Right now, I only got the first rank. When we start leveling, I'm going to get that second rank. This one, on the other hand, Wild Strikes. I got both ranks on this one because haste is increased by 2%. Your auto attack critical strikes increase your auto attack speed by an additional 20%. Think about that. So I'm gaining haste, and then the criticals is going to give me more haste on top of like this haste, or you know what I mean? Like, to have more haste in general as a tank is just genius. I can have more of my defensive abilities more often, and then the particular moves I do use with rage are more often, so I get to do things more often. The more often, the more damage. The more damage, the more self-healing. You get what I'm coming with? You hear me? Now, this one is one I just obviously had to do because I wanted to get to the things below it. Now, granted, having more health is what? More capabilities of having more healing towards the things that are a percentile. I mean, in general, more health is good just because of the fact if you're going to fight stuff that just doesn't give a shit if you have armor, as an example, like bells, that's where the health comes in, really. You know what I mean? And then the higher amount of health, the easier it is for you to stay alive a little bit longer, give your healer a little bit more opportunity to heal you, stuff like that. So, increases my stam by 5%. And the duration of fear, sap, and incapacitating effects on me are reduced by 10%. Now, somebody might right now be thinking, well, wait a minute. You do have that berserker rage thing right up here, which would take away fear. But granted, depending on what you're dealing with, there might be more than one target that can sap, incapacitate, and fear. Fear as one of the most, I think, ruinous things. Like, I mean, you get feared and you run into, like I said, to a random direction. Yes, but as we talked about earlier, berserker shout's only a minute cooldown. I mean, almost anything can happen within a minute. So for me to have the reduction of these things as a tank, I believe is a must. You know, the less downtime I have to not do damage and to actually keep the enemies attacking me and not my friends is like a must. But the benefit of that is I get something that I really want. Now, granted, there's something I can't have yet. I mean, I can have it if I tweak this a little bit, but I don't have Avatar right now. But I know that would be like one of my first points once I get an additional point from leveling. Not a big deal. But what I do like to do right now, and I would like to play more of it, is obviously I love my shockwave. That's a move I just love. Some about it, when it first came around, I just enjoyed the shit out of shockwave. Now, it was never a crazy damaging move, but I did like the stunning ability, but at least there was some damage there. Now, because I love the move and I know I'm going to use it a lot, here's the thing. Bam! Shockwave deals 350% increased damage and will always critically strike. Think about that, okay? Let's let that soak in for a little bit. We're talking about 350% extra damage on top of the damage the thing is doing. That's a lot. And it's always going to critically strike. And what do I have as a Tarn? Doing more damage on my critical strikes. Then Shockwave is going to be a very potent ability to use as often as I can, especially on multiple targets in front of me. Yes, we're talking about something that I know for a fact is just so effing good. I know it's gonna put a smile on my face. I was just hitting some test dummies, and there was one crit that was definitely over 8k. It was almost 9k. So you think about I'm hitting a dummy for 9k. I mean, that's nice. I mean, we're talking about a maneuver that at one point I think I was barely hitting 3k on a crit on targets, and now that one's almost 9k. Yeah, I think I'm gonna go with it. You know what I'm saying? It's like, yo, and the stunning effect. So you're doing that much damage and you're stunning those bad boys in front of you. Oh my god. Now, depending on how many extra points I get, now the one thing I don't know if I'm gonna end up having is the one next to it, which now they didn't have the range part in the original talent, right? There was only a talent that if you hit 3 or more targets, it reduces the cooldown by 15 seconds, which was nice. Don't get me wrong, that's nice, but it's not the biggest thing on the planet compared to the extra damage. Now, depending on the layout that I end up with, I'm going to see if I'm going to try to get it, because it is nice, because the other part that they added was Shockwave's range is increased by 6 yards. So that would be nice, because right now it's only 10 yards. So the timing is going to be there and everything. I mean, normally I think I've been good on this where I managed to always get my targets into a position and then I get into a position and I'm smacking all of them with shockwave. I'm not missing out on anybody. So this is not something that's a necessity, but throughout everything, if I'm able to get it, I'll probably get it. Now, that's the warrior tree for the way it is right now. And like I said, I might be able to do stuff later. It's like, technically, I really do want my avatar. I really, really, really want my avatar. See, some people are like, oh, but you know, the damage is, you can do this thing over here or whatever. Which, see, now this is a minute and a half. Yes, this is a minute and a half. But between the two moves that we're looking at here, which is Spear of Bastion and Avatar. Avatar is the only one that has a reduction of its time over in the other tree. The Bastion does not. So I can more frequently use Avatar more often. See, that's the main reason I want it. Also, because of the fact it removes roots and snare. I don't know how many damn times that Avatar has been the helpful tool that it is to get out of a root or snare effect. Okay, there's been times where I know the fight's gonna have a root or snare effect, and I purposely don't use Avatar until it happens. Like, yeah, I could probably use Avatar and then all of a sudden they snare me. The thing is, you can get snared after using the ability. So your best bet is to wait, have a root or snare effect happen, then use Avatar to get rid of the snare. So I know for a fact I'm getting that. Now, I don't know how many other points we're getting. So Avatar increases the damage of Thunderclap and Shockwave by 50% and reduces the cooldown of Thunderclap by 50%. Oh my god. So I could boost my Shockwave by an extra 50. Think about it. It's already at 350%. So actually it'll be at 400%. And it crits. Guaranteed. I will go with the Unstoppable Force. Because I think about hitting Avatar and then following up with a Shockwave at 400% guaranteed crit. On top of that, with the Avatar adding another 20% because his Avatar, Shockwave is gonna hurt. But then Thunderclap, 50% reduction of its time. So if I got the haste going pretty good, then an extra 50% on top of that, that Thunderclap is going to be killer. And that's even more of a guarantee that Deep Wounds and Rend would stay on the targets. Jesus Christ. All right, the future looks bright. So let's look at the protection side of things. All right, so obviously the first thing is Ignore Pain. Now, I say when first Ignore Pain, or I don't know if it was called Ignore Pain when it first came around, but the type of iteration that it was the same thing, where you get to ignore some of the damage that's incoming. And the reason I thought that was very good was because, hey, as a warrior, you're really good against melee, but how much do you have helping you for the casting? Yeah, I believe at that time I had Spell Reflect, and I did have an interrupt, but between those two moves alone is not enough. That's where Ignore Pain helps on dealing with things of magical damage, like things that you cannot interrupt and things that you cannot reflect. What are you going to do? That's where Ignore Pain comes in. Like, instead of using your rage on shield block as an example, you're not against a casting enemy, you're not going to use shield block. You're just not. It's not a thing that you need to use. They're just sitting there casting spell. What do you do need? Ignore Pain. So that's why I believe they definitely have it up top, because that's like an absolute must have. Okay, now the next thing, obviously Revenge is there. Definitely using Revenge. And of course, what are the other buffs I have? Revenge has a 20% chance to refund the rage it uses. So it's 20 rage. So to get back 10 rage, the chance to. That's fantastic. Then on top of that, I got that other ability where, boom, I'm going to hit out one swing of Revenge. And if I hit 3 or more targets, there goes an additional wave for more damage. Boom. And the thing is, last I remember, it swings a wide arc of damage, hitting everybody in front of me. Yeah, the damage reduces after 5 targets. Of course, sucks. I mean, it's one of those things. I kind of understand Blizzard's way of dealing things, but hey. But let's say most of the groups I'm pulling is 5 targets. So I'm hitting all 5 of these son of a guns at full damage. Chance to crit a lot higher than normal, and then with the extra wave of damage, yeah, for free. Like, think about it, you're using 20 rage already to do the move. Why not add something a little extra to it for using that with the extra wave of damage? Then on top of that, to have a chance to get half of that rage back, to use it either on your next revenge or on shield block to be defensive. So the more rage you got, the more readily available you have to do other things. Now, Devastate was a move I barely used in certain occasions way back, and not at all during Shadowlands. But having this one thing called Devastator, which replaces Devastate, so it makes Devastate technically a passive thing. And then my auto attacks deal an additional 891 damage. So on top of the regular melee damage, I got more. What's more damage? More healing. You got me? Boom. Now, I have a 20% chance to reset the cooldown of Shield Slam. Now, what did I do on Shield Slam on the other side? Was I increased the damage of Shield Slam, right? So imagine also that I increased the attack speed of my melee. Now my melee technically has more opportunities for that 20% to be a thing, to then have my Shield Slam pop up that more often. But then on top of that, because I have good haste, Shield Slam can be readily available besides that a little sooner. So technically, in certain occasions, it could feel like I'm spamming Shield Slam. So imagine that. Shield Slam does a lot of damage. I'm not gonna lie. Shield Slam, I've cracked some son of guns with Shield Slam pretty hard. So to have that as a thing, and the more often you Shield Slam, the more often you gain range. The more often you gain range, the more you can do other offensive or defensive capabilities. So there you go. And the more often I do Shield Slam, the more often I do damage that way, which also does what? More healing. Yeah, got me. Now, this one on the left, Demoralizing Shout. I personally think I love that ability. To just have everything around me do less damage by 20%, as it says here. That's good, especially considering if, let's say I'm around nothing but casters and they're all trying to crack me with some heavy spells. A reduction of 25% damage, especially if you know what's coming, you know, like what enemies are doing what, that 25% goes a long way. But I also needed that to do other things, like Best Served Cold, okay, is something that I like because Revenge deals 10% increased damage. Boom. More damage means more threat, which means more self-healing. More base damage means a higher crit damage, ultimately meaning that much more output that I do. And because of that output being as high it is, means more self-healing that I do. You hear me? But it says, or 20% more damage when you successfully dodge or parry, made it cost no rage. So if I were to parry or dodge, that move lights up and it's free to use. 100%. Okay, so I'm not using 20 rage, so that 20 rage can go towards a defensive capability while I'm over here being offensive. Boom. See that? 20%. That's nice. So that revenge on baseline is doing 10% more damage. But if I throw it out on after a dodge or parry, that is at no cost and it's 20 total percent. Nice. Okay, hitting some of the bitches hard. Plus, that means the extra wave of damage that you get for free hitting 3 or more targets, it's going to be a higher amount of damage. That higher amount of damage is what? More threat, more healing. Boom, especially if it crits, right? If it crits, it's even more damage. Boom. Now, for Devastate, there was a thing that you had to get that just to get down here. Now, over here on the right, I got a thing that I definitely think it's a necessity when things are getting tough. When things are getting tough, let's say you're pugging a group, and they're not much of a good group, and, you know, you need to pull a lot of things out of your ass. Well, one of the things to pull out of your ass is Last Stand. Increases your maximum health, right, by 30%. It's for 15 seconds long, which is great. 15-second window is a really good window. It's not a bad window. But then also instantly heals you for that amount. Think about it now. Let me give you a little something real quick so you can see why I'm also getting it. Besides being able to get the other things at the bottom of the tree, of course. Now, here, that's 30% extra healing. So it's 30% 30% of the amount, okay? So whatever 30% of my health is, that's how much I'm getting as a heal, okay? But remember, I have a thing that I can self-heal with where impending victory gives me 30% of my health. So imagine popping this, okay? I pop it, I'm within that 15 seconds, I'm still fighting, my health's still going down. Let's say I'm getting really hit hard by whatever boss it is because the healer's dead or whatever. But within that 15 seconds, I pop victory. That victory is 30% on top of that extra amount of health. So wherever my health goes up to, 30% of that is when I'm getting healed. So my standing capability right there is that much better. Now, granted, I don't know 100% if Leech tacks on a little extra healing because of these, since these are baseline. See, the way it works is Leech is more about what these damaging numbers are. So a percentage of like 1,000 damage I did over here, and then a 2,000 damage over there. That's where the healing comes in. I don't know necessarily if 30%, like if the percent 30, and then what if I got, like right now I got 11% the Leech, right? Is there an extra percentage on top of the 30 by the Leech? You see what I'm saying? That I'm not 100% sure of. So I'm gonna reserve myself and say that it doesn't. I don't think the things that are baseline healing, like this one, gives, you know, because that's 30%. Now, here's the thing, though. On impending victory move, okay, that does damage and gives you 30%. That one will give some healing based on that damage. So it's telling me it's 1,833 damage, right? That means 11% of that is healing. So I get that 11% plus the 30 from the baseline ability. That's not bad, especially considering if 30% is going to be a lot anyway. So you tack on that little extra. I mean, that little extra is just good. Now, like I said, Devastate, I needed it just to get, like, it says Devastate, Thunderclap, Revenge, and Execute have a 30% chance to reset the cooldown on Shield Slam. Bam. Another way to get Shield Slam more often. So not only is my regular melee ability giving me 20% chance, all these abilities here give me 30% chance. Now, this one over here, I went with Brace for Impact. Using Shield Slam increases the damage of Shield Slam by 5%. Think about that. It stacks up to 5. Okay, so that's 25%. And after it hits 5, it just resets the timer of the 16-second window. Dude, more damage means more chance to crit. More chance to crit means more healing. More healing means I stay alive longer. Like, it takes a little less effort for a healer to have to keep me alive. Just that side note. The other reason I want to have these self-healing capabilities is to have less for the priest or the shaman or the druid or that paladin. Let them do a little extra damage. Let them have some fun while I'm over here being a badass. How about that? But also in a really hard, tough environment, that just alleviates some shit off of the healer anyway. So like, yes, I'm doing better, but the team might be getting hit by something. Now that healer can use a little more resource on keeping the DPS alive and not have to worry about me that much. Which technically, if you ask me, that's what the job of a tank is. Yes, I'm not just there to just get hit and then get healed, because if not, I die. No, I want it to be where I can take damage, I can put out damage, and I can heal myself. I really believe that I need to do that as a tank. Less effort needed from the healer. That's less stress on the healer. You see what I'm saying? Which ultimate makes that healer a little more happy, because I've been there, done that. I've healed, and healing ain't just easy shit. I mean, sometimes it's stressful. It can get stressful. I like a challenge myself, so I don't get stressed. I just take the challenge like, oh yeah, here we go. But other people that played might not be that way. They might see it as, oh my god, I don't want to play a healer anymore. Look at how this tank performed or whatever. No, not with me. No, not with me. Anybody that's out there that's ever going to watch this video, that ever known that they've healed Puermero, they know how easy it is and how good it is to have me as a tank in their group, especially in a pug. There's been times where there was healers, like, they'll whisper me and say, hey dude, it was cool to be, you know, have you as a heal, you were a badass or whatever like that, which obviously makes me fucking feel good, because it's like, all right, that means I'm doing my job and I'm doing it well. That's what that means. Now, here's another thing I was thinking of not getting until I noticed what's below it. So it's like, oh, damn it, I gotta put this point into this thing. But there was something else on the side that I technically got to. I said, well, if I'm gonna get it, I'm gonna get this. Okay, so here we go. I'm gonna go down this line, and then I'll go down the other lines. Okay, challenging shout. So I taunt all enemies within 10 yards to attack me for 6 seconds. That one's really good in very niche situations. And I mean niche as in, there's not, dude, I don't know how many times I've actually used challenging shout, to be honest. Maybe 3 times? I don't know. I really don't know. It's been in a section on my bar that's not readily available, so I got it there just in case, which I think I did it once just to do it. That's it, you know. But considering a situation, if you're around a bunch of a-holes in a 10-yard radius that are all casters, and you want to get them close together and at least in front of you, but right close together where you can deal with them just a little bit easier, that's where the disrupting shout comes into play. It replaces challenging shout, right? So it does the same effect as it taunts all enemies within 14 yards, not 10, 14. See, this one was 10. We're upgrading to 14. So first of all, you see too, 1.5 minute cooldown, same amount of cooldown, but luckily we're getting more out of it. So an extra 4 yards. That's very helpful for the 6 seconds to come at me. Come at me, bro. But here's the thing. Interrupts all spell casting within 14 yards and prevents any spell in that school from being cast again for 6 seconds. That's the other reason. Now, as a warrior tank, I have the ability to tell an entire group to shut the fuck up, come to me, and then hit them, of course, hit them with a shockwave because I want to fucking crack them to the white meat. That's a fucking fantastic deal. Like, imagine that too, like, if you got multiple targets that are all casting, and let's say you do have, let's say, let me give you a window of a scenario here. You got 10 targets. Let's say you got about 5 of them just fine, right? And somehow the other 5, like that one's looking at the healer, that one's looking at the hunter, and that one's looking at that guy. So they're looking different places, and they're stationary. They're standing in one spot because that's all they need to do to throw some spells at a motherfucker. What about if I just move to the right spot where I know I got that 14-yard radius, pop challenging shout, tell the ones I have and the other ones to shut the hell up, then they all come to me, and now I have 100% aggro because I know from there on out I'm not gonna lose them. Once I got the enemy, I'm not losing any threat, buddy. That ain't happening. Now I'm screwing them up. Now I'm gonna mess them up. Now I'm gonna shockwave their ass. Then I have a thing called Show of Force. Damage increased by 10%. Oh, look at that. I added another 10% to revenge. Another 10% to revenge. More damage means more healing, right? And revenge increases the damage of your next thunderclap by 20%. That's more damage. On the other regular tree, I had 10%. Now I'm adding 20%. That's an extra 30%. Then, once I have Avatar, remember that one ability to make revenge do, thunderclap do what? 50% more damage? Think about it. That's 50 on another 30, another 30 on the 80%. Then because of Avatar, I can reduce. Avatar is doing what? Once I get the ability to have it do a reduction of its cooldown, so I can pop thunderclap more often too. So I can revenge, thunderclap, revenge, thunderclap, revenge, thunderclap. It's a no-brainer. Plus, with the haste, here's the other thing about the haste. The global cooldown. So when you hit an ability, it takes a moment before you can hit another ability. Even though the ability is an instant cast, you still have to wait the global cooldown to hit it again. Haste reduces that global cooldown. So with the way my haste is going, I can revenge, thunderclap, revenge, thunderclap, revenge. So revenge is boosting thunderclap. Win-win situation, baby. Right there, more damage. Then, here's that haste I was just talking about. Into the fray. Now, this was technically a talent. I don't know when it came into play, but I've had it for a hot minute. I'm not gonna lie. But it was like you gain 2% haste for each enemy or ally within 10 yards, up to 10%. The way I'm grouped and the way you can group up a mob of bad guys, I'm always giving myself an extra 10% haste. Think about that. An extra 10% haste on the already 10% that I probably have, or 20% I already have, putting me like 30. If I'm not mistaken, I was just looking at my gear. So let's just go with 30. So that's 30% haste right there. Easy. That means I can focus a little bit on my gear to give me more crit. You see what I'm saying? That way I can have a nice healthy balance of crit and haste to help with the overall spectrum of all the things I can do as a protection spec warrior. See what I'm saying? The more often I can do things, the better. The more often I can do things and crit, the better. Because the more often I crit, the more healing I do. The more often I can get the chance to crit, the more healing I do. And with that extra haste, that's lower cooldown of the global cooldown. That's the more readily available I can do the next instant. The faster I do the instant cast, the faster I do the damage. The faster I do that damage, the faster I get that heal from that damage. Got me? Boom. Now, this one, I just like, dude. Increases strength and armor by 5% and your critical strike chance by 1%. So adding an extra 1% crit, obviously. The extra strength and armor is interesting. So remember that thing I said I only have one of the 2 ranks, which was called Armed to the Teeth, which I gain more strength by 2% of the armor. So imagine over here, I just added an extra 5% on my armor, which means I get more strength because of that armor. Then obviously it's going to be even higher strength once I get the second rank, when I start getting the points later. So my strength will keep going up for the amount of armor that keeps going up. The more strength, the more baseline damage. The more baseline damage, the higher my crit. The higher my crit, the more I would heal. Got me? Boom. Then this is a thing that came around that put a smile on my face. Okay, first off, let me say I didn't get double time. I was thinking about getting double time to think about having charge more often by 3 seconds and have 2 of them was nice. Here's the thing with charge, okay? Charge is charging one enemy and then rooting them for a second, and I do a little bit of damage. It's cool to have 2 of them. Yeah, that would be cool. But that's okay for a DPS spec if I'm playing DPS. To be honestly, that's good for like your arms warrior and your fury warrior. I probably would do double time on them, but I'm protection spec, and right over here we got a thing called shield charge. Now, shield charge is different in many ways. First off, regular charge, you have to be a full distance of minimum 8 yards from a target to even use charge. Shield charge does not. That means I could pretty much be in something's face and do it. Same range too as max. Charge is 25-yard range maximum, so is shield charge. So they're the same on that note. Now here's the other difference. Now, yes, charge is only a 20-second cooldown right now. That's not bad. 20 seconds is not bad. But I think charge is my follow-up ability when I need it to go to like another spot where a target's at with another group maybe. Because my first group I'm charging into is shield charge. Why? You charge the enemy with your shield, dealing 9,503 physical damage to it, just that target, and 3,801 physical damage to all nearby enemies within 10 yards. Think about it. I'm hitting this guy right here, right in front of me, and all of his buddies within 10 yards of him. What? When I read that, did I have a smile from ear to ear? What? And then also stuns the primary target for 4 seconds. So playing my cards right, if I need to stun one individual and that charge is available, I can just charge that target, and there you go. Boom. Like if I'm over here looking at these guys and their DPS and that healer's over there, there's a healer NPC just about to do a heal, and I just do shield charge right to that son of a bitch. Shut his ass up for 4 seconds. That's it. Shut his ass up. Throw him down. And it's that much damage plus the chance to crit that much damage. That single target's gonna feel it, but then all those other ones are gonna feel a good chunk too. Jesus. So yeah, that shield charge is just so effing cool. Now, I got the battering ram with shield charge, critical strike chance, and critical strike damage increased by 15%. You know I had to do that. You know it. Extra chance to crit, and then on top of the extra damage I already do on top of critical strike, you're gonna give me an extra 15% on top of that? What? My Taran ass is cracking some of bitches hard. And shield charge increases your auto attack speed by 20% for 20 seconds. So right off the bat, I'm technically a good opener tank. I could charge in and blast right off the bat, especially for the individuals that might have like a damage chart meter or something like that. Most individuals realize how like tanks can go in and they build up damage. Like some of them start right here and then they kind of build up to a sustainable amount almost. Nah, not me. With shield charge like that, I'm going to be explosive on the mob that we're going to deal with right off the bat. I'm going to be very explosive. I mean, that's going to be freaking awesome, man. I'm so happy. I'm just happy. Now, let's go over to where we were at before. So, Devastate doing more damage. Rend, having that ability is really good. Having the chance for the extra haste means Rend pops bleeds more often. The more often is technically the more amount of bleed throughout its duration. And for it the chance to crit means that much more healing from the leech of Rend. So, Rend is going to be a very beautiful thing on damage and healing. Boom, my self-healing is going to be good. And right alongside Deep Wounds, which is another tick that can tick faster because of the haste, to give me more damage more often, to then also give me more healing more often from those ticks. What? Exactly. Shield wall. Technically think that's a must-have. You're gonna get those situations where shit's gonna hit you hard. And let's say there's no way to hide from it. Boom. Shield wall. Okay? 40%. 8 seconds. You just pop that. Good to go. Now here's the thing. I did anger management, which is a thing that I had before. Now part of this particular talent is not gonna be in effect yet because I don't have it, which is the part for Avatar, because I don't have Avatar yet, but I will. Just planning ahead. Every 10 rage you spend, the remaining cooldown of Avatar and Shield Wall reduced by a second. Now that doesn't sound like a lot, right? A second off of, let's look at Shield Slam again. Shield Slam is 3.5 minute cooldown. Avatar is a 1.5 minute cooldown. Yeah, obviously Avatar is a lot faster, but sometimes you would be amazed of how often I throw out 10 rage and use it. Okay, so let's take an example. Revenge alone is 20 rage. So that's 2 seconds right there. Ignore Pain can go 35 rage. Okay? That's easily 3 seconds. So this and this, look at that. What's that? So that's 50 seconds right there. So if I pop this again, it's another 50 seconds. Let's just say Avatar, I often use that quite a bit because of anger management. There's times I use it so often just because I'm blowing so much rage. Now, granted, it wasn't as often as I think I could, especially now that I'm looking at everything that I got to give me rage that much faster. With the haste and the global cooldown, I could throw out more abilities more often that uses rage, which technically makes anger management something really fast. That means Shield Wall will be available a hell of a lot sooner than 3.5 minutes. And Avatar will be a hell of a lot faster to activate more often than 1.5 minutes. Bam. See how everything works right there? Synergy. Now, I got this one thing called Shield Specialization. It's a 2-ranker. I know eventually I want to get down into some of this portion down here as an example. I'll get to that here in a second. But Shield Specialization is your block chance is increased by 6%. And your block value is increased by 15%. That's very important. A warrior does block quite often. Then, if you're going to do shield block, which means 100% chance to block during the duration of the blocking of that spell, okay? You want the value of your block to be better. That means more damage is blocked, because when you block, you only cut some of that damage. You're actually still getting hit with the rest of it. See what I'm saying? Now, like I said, it's a 2-rank. I right now only have the 1st rank. I'll have to get the 2nd rank later. The reason I want the 2nd rank, too, also, not just because of the benefits, but Booming Voice. That's a talent I had, and I definitely would like to have it again. Because not only will Demoralizing Shout reduces enemies' damage to me by 25%, with this, it means I automatically, let's say I need 30 rage. Let's say I got no rage, and I just dumped my rage on a bunch of defensive capabilities. Like I just dumped all my rage. Like let's say I had a full rage bar and I dumped it all on defensive capabilities, and I have nothing to do anything else because I haven't built up any rage, but I want to. You can hit a demoralizing shout, give yourself 30 rage right there. Bam. See? You'll always have rage. You can always put yourself in a position where you'll never not have rage, okay? Then, it also has a little extra to it. And it increases damage you deal to affected targets by 20%. More damage means what? More healing, you got me? Dude. And that's on top of the damage reduction. So you're having the enemies hit me for less damage. Now I'm going to hit them for more damage. And then I'm going to get healed for more because of that more damage. Think about it. Doing it the right way, I could build the character towards when I'm fighting that mob. My self-healing on the damage can outweigh the damage the enemies are giving to me. Wouldn't that be some wild shit? Think about it. That'd be some wild shit that the amount of self-healing that I got is higher than the incoming damage. I could go back up to 100% on my own. Jesus Christ, that's gonna be some fun. One of the other things I wouldn't mind doing is Indomitable, something that I had before, which is it increases your health by 10%. Now, here's the other thing. Every 10 rage you spend heals you for 1% of your maximum health. Think about it. I'm increasing my health by 10% there. Last Stand can give me an extra 30%. And then if I need to, throw out the Impending Victory, which will give me 30% of that maximum health. And then that's 10 rage I spent using Impending Victory, which means I get healed for 1% on top of those heals because I'm spending 10 rage. Indomitable is a must-have for what I'm doing. Gotta do it. But yeah, so far so good. It looks like I'm just always gonna have a smile on my face playing my warrior. I'll see y'all later.